I am an old man now. My hands shake a little when I hold a cup of tea, and my knees complain every time I climb the stairs, but my memories remain sharp, almost painfully clear. Time has slowed my body, but it has given weight to my thoughts. When people look at me today, they see calm, they see patience. They assume I have always known who I was and where I was going. They think strength comes naturally with age. The truth is, strength is something I learned very late in life, and it was not learned from books, success, or praise. It was learned from my daughter at a time when I was at my weakest. There was a period in my life when mornings felt like punishment. I would open my eyes and immediately wish I hadn't. The ceiling above my bed felt like a reminder of everything I had failed to do. I used to be someone who woke up before the alarm, someone who believed that the day belonged to those who claimed it early. But that man disappeared quietly. No one noticed the exact day he left. Not even me. I had worked for the same company for decades. I gave it my youth, my energy, my weekends, and my health. I missed birthdays and school events. I told myself it was all worth it, that I was building security, a future, something solid. When they called me into that small office and told me they were letting me go, they used polite words. They said things like restructuring and new direction, but I heard what they didn't say. I was old. I was replaceable. I was no longer needed. I remember holding that cardboard box with my belongings, a mug, some papers, a photo of my daughter from years ago. It felt heavier than it should have. When I walked out of the building, the sun was bright and people were busy with their lives. No one noticed that my world had just collapsed. I sat in my car for a long time before driving home, staring at the steering wheel like it might give me answers. At home, I pretended. I smiled. I told my family everything was fine. I said I would find something else soon, but inside I felt hollow. Days passed, and that hollow feeling grew. I stopped caring about small things first, then bigger ones. I stopped waking up early. I stopped shaving every day. I wore the same clothes again and again. The mirror became something I avoided because I didn't recognize the man looking back at me. My thoughts were cruel. They spoke to me when the house was quiet. They told me I was finished, that I had nothing left to offer, that my best years were behind me. I felt ashamed of myself, not just because I was unemployed, but because I felt so defeated. I had always believed I was strong, and now I couldn't even convince myself to try.
My daughter was still young then, but children have a way of seeing truth without needing words. She noticed how quiet I had become, how I sat in the dark, how I laughed less. She would come and sit near me, sometimes talking about school, sometimes about things that didn't really matter. I listened, but not fully. My mind was elsewhere, trapped in its own noise. I thought I was protecting her by hiding my pain. I didn't realize she was watching me disappear piece by piece. One evening, I was sitting alone in the living room. The lights were off, the curtains closed. The room felt like a reflection of how I felt inside. She came in and stood there for a moment, then reached for the switch and turned the light on. I remember feeling irritated, like she had interrupted something important, even though I was doing nothing at all. She looked at me quietly, with eyes that held no judgment, only concern. She didn't ask why I was sad. She didn't tell me to be strong. She just said she didn't like seeing me like that. Those words cut deeper than anger ever could. I wanted to respond with something clever, something defensive, but nothing came. She climbed onto the couch and leaned her head against my arm. We sat there in silence. Then she spoke again, softly, almost carefully. She reminded me of something I had said to her many times when she struggled. She asked me why I wasn't trying again. In that moment, everything I had ever taught her stood in front of me like a mirror. All my advice about perseverance, patience, and courage felt heavy. I had no answer. My throat tightened, and my eyes burned. I turned away so she wouldn't see my tears, but children always see. She didn't pull away. She stayed. From that day, something began to change. Not suddenly, but slowly. She didn't push me. She didn't argue. She reminded me of who I used to be in quiet ways. She woke me up in the mornings and repeated my own words back to me. She asked for help with homework she could easily do alone. She brought me my old notebooks and asked why I had stopped writing ideas down. I resisted at first. I made excuses. I told her I was tired, that it was too late, that the world had changed. She listened patiently, then said things that were simple but powerful. She said I was still here. She said late was better than never. Those words didn't fix everything, but they cracked the walls I had built. One day, she came home with a drawing. It was messy and bright. It showed a small figure holding hands with a taller one. Above it, she had written words that stayed with me. She called me her hero. I laughed it off at first, embarrassed, uncomfortable. I told her heroes were strong, that they didn't sit in the dark feeling sorry for themselves. She looked at me seriously and said heroes don't give up. That night, sleep avoided me. I kept thinking about that drawing, about the responsibility of being someone's example. I realized that if I gave up completely, I wouldn't just be feeling myself. I would be teaching her that quitting was acceptable when life became difficult. That thought frightened me more than rejection ever had. The next morning, I woke up before she did. It felt unfamiliar, like stepping into a version of myself I had forgotten. I made my bed. I shaved. I opened the curtains and let the sunlight fill the room. It felt uncomfortable and hopeful at the same time. I started with small steps. I updated my resume. Even though it felt outdated, I read. I learned things I didn't understand at first. I felt slow. I felt foolish. But I kept going. There were days when I wanted to quit again. Days when rejection emails arrived. When my body ached. When doubt returned. On those days, my daughter talked to me about her fears. She shared her worries about school, about failing, about not being good enough. Then she told me that if I could keep trying, so could she. Without realizing it, she had turned me into her example, and that responsibility gave me strength when nothing else could. Time passed. Progress came slowly. Eventually, I found work again. It wasn't the same job, and it didn't come with the same title or pride, but it gave me purpose. More importantly, it gave me back my sense of self. I laughed more. I listened more. I lived again. My daughter grew, but her belief in me never faded. Even now, when my hair is gray and my steps are slower, she looks at me with the same trust. When I look back on my life, I don't see failure as the end. I see it as the moment my daughter became my teacher. She didn't motivate me with speeches or force. She motivated me by believing in me when I couldn't believe in myself. She reminded me that as long as I breathe, as long as I can take one more step, my story continues. And every day I wake up now, I try to live in a way that proves her belief was never wasted.